Hi quilters and future quilters, here's Quilting Nerd, and taking into account that many of you liked my previous video where I showed how I am using this tiny sweet little sewing machine for free motion quilting, I decided to make this video, which is more like an intro video for all of you who would like to try free motion quilting but you are sure you do not have the right equipment. So actually you can start free motion quilting on such a small machine. It is enough for you to discover if this is for you and if you like it, and if you will consider then investing funds and money into something bigger, because it is not like this you need a long arm quilting machine to quilt your own patchwork tops, to create something on your own. You can do that with domestic machine as well, and that's what all my channel is all about. So what you need to do first, if you have such small sewing machine at home, first you have to check if you have the possibility to lower the feed dogs. And in the case of my machine, they are actually here from behind. Let me take the camera here and show you. As you can see, here I have a button to push, and if I do that, I'm lowering my feed dogs. In some machines you can find it at the side of the machine, or in some cases you have to remove this part and this button can be somewhere else. Very simple machines do not have this option, but then you can cover actually the feed dogs with a metal plate that is available, or what you can do is actually set the stitch length to 0, because what you don't want to have is that the feed dogs are moving. If the feed dogs are lower, this setting is actually not relevant, but if you cannot lower them, just set the stitch length to 0. And in a moment, let me just, right now the foot that I have is a normal sewing foot there, but let me show you in a moment the other parts of equipment. It's very useful to have if you want to start free motion quilting. As you can see, the setup changed a little bit because I have here a nice extension table. This is one of the things which makes free motion quilting experience on such a small machine much more pleasant. So if you have one, please use one, otherwise you have very limited space to move your sandwich under. The other two things you need, or one thing you need actually, it's free motion quilting foot. And it's, in case of my machine, which is a normal sewing machine, it's a Daring hopping foot. It looks like this, probably you know it. It has a spring, and you can use it to move to free motion quilt. I have another one which I like much more because it has much bigger opening. It did not come with my machine. It's a no-name, one size fits all low shank sewing machines. It also hops, but it has this much bigger opening, so I can see much better where I am with my needle. You will see the difference in a moment. Then of course we have a quilting thread. This is 50 weight quilting thread, and I have also bobbin with matching color. So it is good to make sure that your needle is new, that's the case here, and everything inside in the machine is cleaned out. It makes the sewing experience much more pleasurable for all the instances. What doesn't matter what you are doing. So let me install the foot, and then let's start. Oh, I'm sorry, we need one more thing before we go, and that means the quilting sandwich. You see this? I forgot. I concentrated on the machine. And for now I just made a very small one for the testing, and quilting sandwich means we have 2 layers of fabric and a layer of batting in between. If it's bigger than that, you can use safety pins to fix it or layer of glue. I don't do that because for such small pieces, the friction between the fabric and the batting, it's doing its job very well and the fabric is not shifting too much. So let's, as I mentioned before, we have the 2 feet to choose from. I would go with the foot that it's most common, and probably you have it with your sewing machine. And I will install it. It's a low shank machine, which means this part here where the foot is attached is very, very short. And that's actually a factor if you are selecting feet from different manufacturers, and when you are choosing your quilting rollers, but that's for different video. Let's thread the needle. And we are almost ready to go. So remember, we have our feet dogs down. We can now start preparing. So I'm pulling my bottom thread up because in this way I am avoiding ugly knots at the back and it's cleaner, much better start. Then the next step is to secure the threads so they are not unraveling. My machine is doing that with 1 stitch, but I simply prefer to make 4 to 5 stitches in almost the same location. And quilting gloves, it's a very useful thing. It simply helps to move the fabric. And we are almost ready to go. There is a question of the tension, and I was trying to simulate the problems, but this little machine is simply not letting me do that, so I will omit this part for now. Let me adjust the camera a little bit. So now we want to start. And the biggest challenge you will face is the realization of the discrepancy between your expectations and your abilities, because many of you are on Facebook, are on Instagram, are watching YouTube videos, and many of the YouTube channels are showing accelerated videos, and they are not true. So in this way, videos are true, but they are not showing the true image of what quilting is. Quilting is not fast. And then, of course, the creators on YouTube are excellent quilters or very good quilters. So we are used to seeing this effortless almost videos, so we think it is easy. Quilting is not difficult, but it takes time and practice. I call it a slow art because it's not fast, and it shouldn't be. Everything else is fast in our lives. It's nice to have something that is slow. So for your first exercise, I would propose just go up and down in those nice back and forth line pattern. If you can do that and have consistent stitch length and keep the spacing consistent and the size, now I am exaggerating, I'm just making it a bit larger every single time. And you can see I'm going rather slow. once it's because of the hopping foot, it's slowing me down, but actually in my everyday quilting I'm not much faster than this. This quality of the quilting is very often determined by the length of the stitches that you have. The point is, unless you have stitch regulator, which I do not have, even with my better machine, the stitch depends on how fast the needle goes up and down and how fast you can move the sandwich during this time. Yeah? So if I'm moving very fast and moving the sandwich very slow, my stitches will be tiny. But if I will move my sandwich very fast, my stitches will be longer. The point is, if I hear that my machine works very fast, I am getting panicky. And then I start also moving very fast. And with fast movement, I'm not precise. So I'm slowing down. I learned to work slow. Always take a deep breath. And then move on. The other most important thing is that almost all the quilters I met are perfectionists. And they are used to having the perfect pieced tops. They are very good at sewing. And suddenly they are doing something where the result is not as perfect as they expect. So they are getting discouraged. So please leave yourself some space for making errors, because you are learning. So errors are part of this, what you are doing. If you do not make mistakes, that means you are not learning. Yeah? And that's why I am a very big advocate of using a thread that is visible. Maybe not very dark on a very light fabric, because that's rarely looking good, but something of different color. And use a flat, a uni color fabric like this one. Why? Because we want to see every single imperfection. Because only like that you can say, okay, I did not manage the spacing. Here this turn was not as it was supposed to be. I have to concentrate on that one. It is not about saying everything is terrible. It's about isolating where you have problems to understand the movement, if you go too fast, too slow, so you can give yourself a feedback and then you can progress. Never ever compare your skills with another quilter, because this quilter is another person that is in different place in life and practice and has different set of skills and preferences. There are different things you can do with your quilting, and you want to develop your own voice and your own style. Concentrate on that. Compare to your own quilting you did 1 week ago, 1 month ago, 1 year ago. And in this way, you can simply see your own progress. Because quilting is about journey. It's about finding your own creativity, especially free motion quilting. It's not only about making the perfect feathers and swirls and flowers. It's about finding with what kind of patterns and lines you want to work. If you prefer to work with straight lines, if you want color and contrast, if you want small quilting or rather large one, if you want it to be practical or baroque quilting or graffiti quilting, there are so many different options. And you can do that only if you spend some time on such practice swatches. You can still use them later on with time for different purposes. For Topflappen, that's called in German, I forgot the word in English. Pot holders, that's the word. You can use them as cosmetic bags, you can use them as nice needle books, and as you will get better, you will then use them for more decorative items. But using the colored fabrics has additional advantage. Those fabrics are usually good quality, but they are cheaper. And you can see your quilting very good there, so. But we covered already that one. The patterns I am making in the background I call it back and forth lines. And it's very good intro for many other patterns. I always recommend it as a first pattern to learn because it allows you to practice different directions of movement. It will allow you to learn what your machine likes, what not. You will practice spacing, density, learn some basics about the texture, how it looks like when you just have very dense lines, very short ones, and how it looks like when they are long and not as dense. And once you can get a good uniform look with those lines, then you can move to pattern patterns, to swirls, to everything else. Just don't rush. Practice on a regular basis, and for such small practice projects, your small quilting machine is absolutely sufficient. And then you can create more complex projects. You can decide to invest money into a larger machine with larger throat, but it doesn't have to be a long arm. You don't have to quilt large quilt if you don't have to. And if you want to quilt large quilts, like it was always my dream, then you can consider investing money in a machine with larger throat. But for learning and testing this new hobby, new passion, and this hobby is pretty addictive, believe me, your machine that you have at home actually should be sufficient. Because if you are serious about sewing, then probably your sewing machine is capable of doing this, what my machine is doing. I learned on a no-name machine, the same size, but with no possibility to buy a such foot like this one. So actually I was learning without needle, without the foot, and it was horrible. The tension was all over the place. Still, I loved it. I got hooked and I never looked back, despite the fact that the first quilting experience was rather terrible. It took me some time to get there where I am now, but quilting actually taught me more than just making beautiful quilts. It taught me that perfection does not matter, organic look does. It's all about love and my passion, and about creativity. And I learned to make mistakes, and I learned to be chill about them. And I learned that this helps me to relax. So, all in all, these are just benefits. So now, let me show you how to end a stitch. So, I will just go up and down a few times in one spot. Now I will lift the needle up and put the foot down, move the sandwich, put it back there where it was, and then by moving the needle up and down, I will pull my bottom thread up again. I actually don't do that very often because my machine I'm using on a regular basis for quilting can cut the thread. But if you do not have this option, then you can just do it like this and then pull the thread through the fabric with a lasso needle and then finish it with the most elegant way, because I'm just usually cutting it. So I was just doing the back and forth lines with a yellow thread, with yellow background thread, so that's how it looks on the back. And already now you can see that the texture is really nice. Nothing fancy, just simple lines, changing direction, and you can see how the density and the length of the lines influences the look, and how rich texture I can get with a very simple pattern. I hope that will help you to start, and let me know how it went. Here is your quilting nerd, and I hope to see you soon. Bye!